Let's talk about the lack of a blood trail inside the Idaho 4 murder house. I'm going to read a comment and then we're going to discuss what the house and the crime scene might have looked like when the suspect left versus when the surviving roommates woke up the next day. Unspoken Word 7 said there had to be blood pooling out from under Zana's door for DM to see and for the suspect to track footprints. Keep in mind that two of the victims, Kaylee and Maddie, were found in a bed, which means that the mattress is going to absorb a lot of that blood. Also, keep in mind that the suspect wasn't in the room for very long. So there wouldn't have been enough time for there to be much blood on the floor. It would have taken some time for the blood to leak on the floor. And it really wouldn't have been there in the couple of minutes that he was in that room. And as far as Zana and Ethan, it's my belief, based on the mattress that we saw taken out of the house, and I'll link to a video that I made that shows the mattress. It's my belief that Ethan was in bed when he was attacked and that Zana was not. So again, there's going to be a mattress. It's going to absorb a lot of the blood. We don't know about comforters. We don't know what kind of like bed linens they had. But there was a lot of stuff that could have shielded the blood from spraying too far or getting on the floor. You also have to remember that if he incapacitated them, and by incapacitated, I mean killed them very quickly, how much blood you expel is dependent on your heart rate. So if your heart stops, you're not going to be expelling a lot of blood. So if you died very quickly, there's not going to be a lot of bloodshed. That doesn't mean that there won't be some, but it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be like all over the floors. I don't think there's going to be pools of it. I don't think it's going to be pooling anywhere, with the exception of where the blood is seen dripping from the foundation. And I'm going to show a picture that I showed in another video. And I'm going to explain why I think Ethan was in bed. And we're going to talk about why maybe there was no blood pooling outside the door of Xana's bedroom. So this is believed to be the setup of Xana's room. Now, here is the blood dripping on the foundation. This is why I believe Ethan was in bed, because we know Zana was visible from the doorway, from the hallway, which means she had to have been somewhere here. So if there's blood dripping down the foundation here, my guess is it came from blood dripping from the bed onto the floor and pooling. Now, as far as Zana, we know from an interview that Kaylee's mom did on the Drunk Turkey podcast that they spoke to Hunter Johnson, who was the person who discovered the bodies. He was Ethan's best friend. And according to Christy, they said that Ethan was blocking the door, and that was why the surviving roommates couldn't get in the door. Now, I've just said, I think Ethan was in bed. I don't think it was Ethan, because these rooms are very small. And the first person mentioned in the PCA, according to the author of the PCA, the first person visible was Zana. So I don't know, like if Ethan was there too, I would have thought they would say that they saw two victims. They instead said that Ethan was also in the room. Now, so I believe the person blocking the door could have been Zana. Now, how could he have gotten out? Trigger warning, because I think this might be a little graphic. I think that when he heard, if it's true that he heard Dylan or Bethany yell, "Shut the fuck up," or if he just heard other noise like the dog barking or other noise in the house and realized there's other people here. Because remember, 4 cars out front, 4 victims. So if he's spooked and he realizes that there's more people in that house and he's like, I gotta go, I think it's very possible that Zana was still alive when he left, which means he could get out of the room without a body blocking it, but that by the next morning or soon after he left, Zana could have been up against that door. So now, why didn't blood pool out? I don't know. There could have been a slant on the foundation. I don't know. I don't think it means that by the next morning some blood didn't pool out. And I think it's very possible that that blood was discovered the next day, and that's when they called Hunter over instead of calling 911. And I'm going to say there, like, I can't imagine being in this position and being confronted with something like this. Like, there's blood coming out the door and we can't get in the door, and like trying to put it all together, calling your friend first, thinking like maybe it's just something that like we can handle or that we can deal with. Because remember, there was constantly police coming over to that house. There was probably fines, and who knows like what was being told to the like campus authorities. I'm not saying it's like the best move to call the friend before 911, but I know people who have done it. And I just couldn't imagine being 20 years old and confronting this and seeing this. So I think once Hunter came over and he got the door open, that's when they realized what had happened. Let's talk about another comment. And it's from Sarah. And she says, I don't think he did it, but I think he was in some way part of it. Here's the thing, that the main reason why I think he acted alone, the suspect, if we're going to talk about him, is because he lacks the interpersonal skills to be able to maintain a relationship with somebody that was based on trust. I don't think people would, if they're putting together sort of a crew for something like this, I don't think they would think of him. Based on what we know, he's not great with people. He sort of irritated a lot of people, always had to be the smartest person in the room type of thing. And, when we heard about him at that pool party and how awkward he was, and his dad kind of asked somebody where he lived, where he moved at the school, could you sort of take him under your wing and introduce him to people? This wasn't somebody who was very good with people. And we also know he wasn't great to his students. There were a lot of complaints about his demeanor to his students. So I don't think that he would be somebody included in a crew who would handle a crime like this. Nor do I think that he could work with somebody, even just one person, because it's been a year, and if there was another person involved, I would like to think that we would know about it. Maybe I'm wrong there. But B, because I just don't see him being able to just manage or navigate a relationship with anybody where he had to make sure he didn't piss them off or lose their loyalty. Now let's talk about another video that I watched today from another creator, and he brought up something interesting that I would like to discuss here. So we're going to watch a snippet and then we'll discuss afterwards.
That I believe that whoever committed these crimes entered through the front door. I still believe that they entered through the front door. I believe they went right through the front. Now, I also believe that it's very possible that Bethany could have opened the front door for these individuals. Now, I'm not saying that she opened the door for them to come in and commit these crimes, But it's very possible that she knew these people and opened the front door for them, not knowing what was about to happen, but that she was familiar with these people and did open the front door.
Where I have trouble with this theory is I think anybody would be, if someone came to the door at 4 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever timeline certain people think that this case occurred in, and people just came in and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna go upstairs." Um, I'm trying to like think of like logistically how would that work? Could she have just let the suspect in and he went upstairs? Maybe. I think we've all um, been led to believe or have believed that he entered through the back slider. We know he left through the back slider because Dylan saw him leave through the back slider. But could he have come through the front door? Um, I'm trying to, this is an interesting theory. Could he have just come to the door, and could he have come to the door with an excuse or a reason that didn't raise alarm bells? See, that's where I have trouble with this theory that, would he have been able to come in and just go right upstairs at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and people not be, what are you doing? But again, I'm old. I'm in bed at 10 o'clock. So who knows? Maybe when I was 20, I would be very, very stupid and be like, 4 o'clock? Sure, come on in.
Not knowing what was about to happen, but that she was familiar with these people and did open the front door. It would make sense because she was on the ground floor. They could have knocked at the door, they could have knocked on her window to get her attention. And if she was familiar with them, she would have opened the front door. I'm sure a lot of people passed in and out of that front door. It was a party house, so it probably wasn't uncommon for her to answer the front door since she is on the ground floor.
Okay, that's another interesting point. Dylan, Bethany was on the ground floor, and and apparently the only one on the ground floor. So would it have been uh odd for her to have to be the one to answer the door? And I'm also thinking about, Dylan hearing somebody say someone's here. Could that have been somebody responding to a knock on the door, a knock on the window? I don't know.
We know that front door was opened around 4 a.m. because of the DoorDash order.
I'll stop there and say we don't know what door the DoorDash order was delivered to. I happen to think it was delivered to the back door. And see, I've always believed that this was a crime of opportunity, in that there was something about the house that night that made him think this was the night. And what I've always wondered is, could the DoorDash have delivered the food and Zana gone to get it and left the door open? Like maybe it was left outside. Maybe they came to the, I could see at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, Xana like, yeah, don't ring the bell. Just come to just send me a text or whatever. That's what I do with DoorDash. My dog is older. She has Cushing. She has anxiety and high cortisol. She gets very stressed out at certain noises. So I turn off all my buzzers and I tell my DoorDash, please just text me when you get here. So I don't imagine that Xana would have the DoorDash delivered to the front door, unless she said to them, no contact, delivery, just leave it, don't buzz. But because she's on the second floor, it just makes, I don't know. To me, it makes more sense. And I just think that something about that night, something presented, an opportunity was presented, and that's why he chose that night. So I just I'm very hesitant on buying into the he came in through the front door theory.
Her statements really didn't add up. They kind of didn't really even make sense. So Bethany stated that she returned home around at approximately 1 a.m. But she also stated that Ethan and Zana were at the Sigma Chi house at a party from 9 p.m. on the 12th until 1:45 a.m. when they returned home that morning. But how would she know they were there until 1:45 a.m. if she got home at 1 a.m.? That's a detail that never really made sense to me.
All right, let's talk about this. Let's go back to the PCA. All right, so on the PCA, it says that Bethany saw or believed Zana and Ethan were at the Sigma Chi fraternity house from 9 p.m. on November 12th to 1:45 a.m. on November 13th. And she says that are seen, so they're seen by BF between 9 and 1:45 a.m. BF also estimated that at approximately 1:45 a.m., Chapin and Kernodle returned to the King Road residence. Now, nowhere does it say that Bethany was home at 1 a.m. Keep that in mind. So it could very well be that she was at the party, she saw Ethan and Zana around 1:45, and they said goodbye, like, hey, we're headed home, I'll see you at home. Or, hey, do you want to walk home with us? Like maybe they found her at the party. Do you want to walk home with us? And that's why Bethany says they were there until 1:45. Now, I want to look elsewhere in the PCA to see if it says that Zana was home, that Bethany was home at 1 a.m. And the only thing I can find is where it says DM and BF both made statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were at home by 2 a.m. and asleep or at least in their rooms by approximately 4 a.m. So it doesn't say that Bethany was home at 1. This could all mean that Bethany left the party with them, left the party shortly after them, and by 2 a.m. they were all home. So it doesn't say that Bethany was home at 1 a.m. So now let's see if we can clarify why they're looking for Ethan and Xana's whereabouts before they got home.
Made sense to me. Now, if y'all remember in the very beginning, it was reported that Ethan and Zana were at the Sigma Chi house from 8 to 9 p.m. on the 12th. And they were looking for information about Ethan and Xana's whereabouts from 9 p.m. until 2 a.m. because they didn't know Ethan and Xana's whereabouts during that time.
No, that's not necessarily true. What they could have been trying to ascertain is who were Ethan and Zana interacting with? Did anybody see them at this party getting into anything, getting into any fights? So I don't know that it was that they didn't know where they were so much as it was such a large window of time that they wanted to talk to more people who may have seen them that night to get an idea of whether or not something happened that led to these murders or that was associated with these murders. And not to mention, I mean, I dated somebody in a frat when I was in college, and when their house would have parties, we didn't always like stay downstairs at the party. Like sometimes we would just go up to his room and do whatever, or maybe like drink, or just because we just didn't want to deal. Like we were older, we were seniors, and we didn't want to deal with freshmen. So it's very possible that Xana and Ethan were just like they were in a room somewhere with like a bunch of other people. But I think what was going on was the police were trying to see who Xana and Ethan were interacting with did anything happen that could have led to the murders. In future videos, I want to talk about things that we believe about this case that we are attributing to law enforcement that might not actually be from law enforcement. You know, you hear a lot of people say, well, law enforcement, they changed the details to support the arrest, or they said this and then they changed it. And a good example would be that the roommates were sleeping on the first floor. Did law enforcement ever say that? Because when I watched the press conference, they never say they were sleeping on the first floor. They just say they were on the first floor. It was a narrative that we attached, that the media attached, that they were sleeping on the first floor. Law enforcement never that I can find actually said that. But if you have a link or anything that contradicts that, or corrects me, please share it in the comments. I do want to talk more about these beliefs, or what people believe are facts that they're attributing to law enforcement that never came from law enforcement, or just like weren't actually facts about the investigation. So based on everything we talked about here, I want to hear what you think in the comments. Do you think they came in through the first floor door? Do you think they would risk that? Do you think they would risk ring cams and being seen and all that? Where do you think Zana and Ethan were between 9 and 1 a.m.? Why haven't we heard more about Bethany? Leave it all in the comments. I'll see you later this week. Bye.